Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I am Leslie. Now on this channel I talk about deeper and darker parts of the healing journey, and I'm not afraid to really open up about my own journey. I talk about things like major weight loss, binge eating, therapy, things like that, and this is really just a safer space for these types of conversations. And today I have a really interesting topic to talk to you about. However, before I talk to you about that, I just want to say that I have been drinking Magic Mind for the last week. Actually more than a week, but consistently for the last week, and I've just finished my first round. So these are a mental performance shot, and for me, I personally have struggled with caffeine and drinking too much caffeine, and I really noticed the effects of stress and anxiety and just the jitteriness that caffeine gives me and puts on my body, and then like the crash in the afternoon. And I am actually a writer, and I also create online, and so it's really important that I take care of the mental. So I've been drinking these for the last week, and for the first few days drinking less caffeine was difficult because it was borderline an addiction that I had to the feeling of drinking coffee. Each day I felt better and more calm. I don't have that super jittery feeling, and it's just easier for my mind as a writer, which is super important. And while you still can drink coffee, this is just a great way to give you a boost with great ingredients. For someone who has struggled with stomach issues for the last year and a half, I can say that I do not put anything into my body that I do not like. I read all of the ingredients, and every ingredient on this I read before trying it, obviously, and I agree with everything inside of it. Plus, for every bottle that they sell, they donate 5 cents to mental health charities, which obviously, talking from me as someone who was very much into that, I am very glad that these companies are doing that. If you would like to also try Magic Mind, there will be a link in the description. You just have to go to that, use Leslie's Journey as the code, and for the next 10 days you'll get 48% off, which is also amazing. I realized that my clothes were on the line and I just took them off, but I'm back. I was talking about how this morning I went for a walk and I was just thinking about my journey, and when I was dealing with feelings of shame and guilt. And this doesn't necessarily have to be related to weight gain, doesn't have to be related to what I'm about to talk about. Guilt and shame can come from many different reasons and actions, but I'm going to relate it to my story, and hopefully you can get something from what I'm talking about. So say you've just eaten a box of cookies or something, and after you eat the box of cookies you have the emotion of, why did I do that? You have this emotion of, I can't believe I did that, and I don't like myself for doing that. You can go, oh my god, I need to work these cookies off right now. And so you'll go for a run and you'll get really sweaty and you'll be like, thank god I did that, but then you haven't actually reflected on the emotions and how you felt, and so you're more likely to get caught up in the cycle again, sitting with the shame and the guilt, and almost transforming it into a place of peace and calmness. And what I'm trying to say is, by doing that, we show ourselves self-respect. We say, this is not aligned to me, I don't want to feel like that. And then we kind of sit with the feelings of what we've done, and then we can change those emotions into a calmer place. And by doing this, it helps us go from a place of hating ourselves into exercising to loving ourselves into exercising. And I can tell you now that when I was 120 kilos, I did not benefit from hating myself into exercising. Yes, I did at some point, yes, at the start, but the way that I got through the entire journey was definitely through losing the 50 kilos. It was definitely coming from a place of love. And then by doing that and by understanding that I no longer wanted to feel these things and transforming those emotions into peace and calmness, I don't really have another word for that right now, so I'm just going to use those. A more positive emotion. We kind of anchor that and we start to build self-respect. And by building that self-respect, you are far less likely to go down the line of looking at a bag of cookies and being like, I'm gonna eat all of those. Obviously, as someone who has dealt with binge eating and emotional eating, it's not always the case, but it's, you know, it's just learned over time. You know, we have to build on these practices. It's not like a one day I want to be skinny, I'm going to go be skinny. Maybe it is for you, but if you have emotional related things like binge eating or eating disorders or whatever you're dealing with, some people have, you know, PTSD, some people have like grieving, and then we turn to food. And what I'm trying to say is that if you're experiencing guilt and you're experiencing these emotions from your actions, your behaviors, your choices, it's important to first acknowledge these feelings. It's uncomfortable, but sitting in those feelings and identifying that you felt like that after you made a choice, after you acted a certain way, after you did something, said something, whatever you're thinking about, it's really important to sit in that feeling, sit with those emotions, because then, like I said, we can identify them. And by identifying that we feel this way and by acknowledging that we feel this way, then we get that realization that we don't like feeling like that. It's not fun to feel like that. Guilt and shame are such hard emotions, they're dark emotions, because they can lead to other things. And so instead, if we sit, identify, realize that we don't like this, we don't want to do this, it gives us a better chance of making better choices. And back to the working out immediately after eating a bag of cookies, it's almost like acting on self-hatred. Acting on self-hatred is a great way to not make the positive changes, but instead stay in a cycle. When you make a decision that you aren't happy with, when you do something that is out of character, or you say something, you act a certain way, it's really important to not just move on. It's really important to acknowledge that, because the only way that we can make better choices, not just for us, but for the people around us, is to acknowledge it, is to sit with it. And by doing that, you can kind of feel the full scope of what you've done, what you've said. And if we're just talking about eating a bag of cookies, I mean, like, you feel how gross you feel how disappointed in yourself you are, especially if you've already been on your journey. This can also relate to if you've been on like a mental healing journey and you say something that you would have said in the past but you thought that you've healed from, and then you feel that shame and that disappointment. It's really important to just acknowledge that and come to peace and come to calmness, because by doing that we can create more positive ways of taking the next step after feeling these emotions, because we're human and these emotions are inevitable. It's just what we experience. And so instead of just letting it go and going on to the next thing and trying to cover it up or trying to do anything, it's really important to acknowledge it. And by doing that, it gives us the self-respect, because we understand that that's not who we want to be. And by acknowledging that that's not who we want to be, you start to show up as who you want to be. And by showing up as who you want to be, you start to build that self-respect. You know, self-respect is really built. And for me, when I was 120 kilos, didn't have that much of that. Didn't really care about my own self, my own feelings at that time. And it didn't just happen overnight. You know, I lost 10, 20 kilos and I was still dealing with these things. But as I started to, you know, acknowledge that this wasn't how I wanted to live my life and this wasn't making me happy, I could then almost transform those emotions into a place of, how about I move instead with peace? By moving with peace or self-love, we start to understand that I don't want the bag of cookies. I'm looking at a bag of cookies, and yeah, that might feel some sort of emotional void, but I already know how I'm gonna feel after it. Last time I ate a bag of cookies, I felt extreme guilt and shame, but last time I also processed those feelings and I also acknowledged that that was how I was feeling. And now that I'm looking at this bag of cookies a few weeks later, I don't want to eat it. Now that I'm looking at this bag of cookies, I'm okay without it, because I know how it feels after eating that. And that can once again relate to doing things, saying things, acting on things. And once we start showing up with self-love, once we start showing up with that peace in our actions turn positive. And by building positive actions, we build self-love, and then we build self-respect. And the way to build self-respect is just by doing things for our highest good over and over again. And yes, we might make mistakes, we might feel that guilt again, but then we're gonna sit in that guilt, we're gonna understand that feeling once again. We're not just gonna brush past it, we're gonna understand what we did. And then by understanding what we did, we are then going to move forward. We're gonna keep making positive choices. And one last thing is that sometimes when we don't sit in the guilt, we can continue making bad choices, or just doing things that aren't who we want to be. And so whatever you're dealing with, if it's weight gain, if you're having trouble eating too much, or if you're having trouble with your positive thinking, you know, or if you're having trouble with friends and family and you might have acted out of line, or something riled you up and you said something, and there's so many different scenarios that this could really be helpful for, which is why I'm really glad that it came up this morning. Whatever you're going through, don't move past it too fast, just sit with it, acknowledge it, understand that you don't want to feel like that, you don't want to do that, you don't want to act like that, and then you can realign with who you want to be and what actions and behaviors you want to show up in this world with. So that is all that I have for this video. I hope that it helps someone. I am back to regular posting. I've been moving house, and so I'm going to be starting to upload more and more over the next few weeks. But thank you for watching this video. I hope that this brought some kind of value to you. I hope that you understood what I was saying. That's all that I have for today, and I will see you in the next video.